Hello everyone and welcome back. This video is titled Man Dumps Bag in McDonald's Trash, Manager Opens It Up. And here goes. It seemed just like a normal day. McDonald's manager Delonda Walker had woken up, got in the subway, and arrived at her place of work in Ybor City. It was an okay job. She had other dreams and aspirations, and it got a little boring sometimes, but it paid the bills. What she didn't expect was that this day, she would cross paths with one of the biggest criminals in Florida. Sometimes, we take routine for granted. We expect our job to be always the same, to always see and talk to the same people. Once we get used to something, we expect it to last. But that's not always the case. Sometimes, the routine gets interrupted by the most brutal, wild, and eerie side of life, by forces about which most people would rather be blissfully ignorant. That's what happened in this story. It all started as a normal day. Delonda didn't dread her job, but she wasn't passionate about it either. She had studied French literature at the University of Tampa, and while her dream was to start a career in research, so far, she was happy enough to be able to pay the bills. So she arrived at the local McDonald's where she was a manager, put on her uniform, and got ready for another day at work. But this day was different. Hers was the morning shift. Her store was situated in a busy area, so most of the customers were people that worked around there and stopped by to grab breakfast or lunch. In just a matter of months, she had gotten used to most of the faces she usually saw on a daily basis. There were a lot of regular clients, so each day kind of blurred into the next. However, this one would be drastically different. This time, she noticed a new customer that she had never seen before. This would not need to be anything too strange on its own. But there was more to it. Before we continue, if you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. Now back to the video. The new client had some sort of eerie, disturbing aura around him. Maybe just one of the street people that used to hang around that area, one might think. But this one was different. He did not only look weird and out of place, the way he carried himself also suggested some kind of threat. Just seeing him enter the door was enough to make Delonda feel nervous. But she brushed it off. Why would she be scared anyway? What's the worst thing that could happen? It was probably just some weird dude from the street. A bit creepy, but that was probably about it, or so she hoped. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong with this man. When the guy got close to the counter and stared at the menu above her head, Delonda felt a shiver going through her spine. But she tried her best to compose herself and asked the man what he wanted. As she waited for him to answer, that sense of eeriness kept making her feel uneasy. Finally, the man ordered something from the menu. Delonda felt relieved. That meant her interaction with the creepy customer would end soon. All she had to do was hand him his order, take the payment, and see him walk through the door. The man got his order and paid in cash. But then he did something else that Delonda wasn't expecting. With a rapid gesture, the creepy man threw a plastic bag in the trash. Then, he quickly walked towards the door and got out of the restaurant. Delonda was puzzled. Was this some sort of prank? It had already been one of the weirdest shifts in a long time. She decided to go to the trash can and look inside the bag. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. There was a gun inside the bag. Delonda's stomach dropped, and her heart started racing. Was that man a criminal? Was he just a creep or a prankster? She checked if the weapon was loaded. It was. She was scared like never before in her life and immediately reported the incident to the police. Soon enough, a police car pulled up to Delonda's McDonald's, picked up the weapon, asked Delonda some questions about how the man who gave it to her looked, and went back to the station. For the next few days, Delonda felt anxious, wondering who that creepy man with the gun was. Not long after, she received a fateful call. It was the Tampa Police Department. They had been conducting an investigation about the man with the gun, and they thought they had caught him. He was detained at the station at this moment. They just needed Delonda to come to the station and confirm that he was the same man she had seen at McDonald's. She went over and, sure enough, it was him. Delonda felt a bit shaken just seeing his face again. Even though she pointed him out from behind a one-way mirror, his creepy aura was still palpable. Without hesitation, Delonda pointed him out. Even though she knew he could not see her, Delonda could not help but like he was watching her somehow. His eyes were filled with rage and he was staring in her direction. After the lineup, Delonda faced an agonizing wait. Left sitting in the station's waiting area, Delonda still had no idea who the man was or what she had gotten herself mixed up in. The time ticked by and Delonda became more nervous by the minute. After what like an eternity, the lead officer on the case, Detective Sergeant Jeremy Williams, came to get her. Officer Williams had a very grave look on his face when he approached Delonda. He escorted her into his office and asked her to take a seat. Facing her, his expression had turned to stone and was now unreadable. When he spoke, his words were chilling as he said, "Delonda, the man you identified is a dangerous criminal." Delonda was still reeling from this news when she noticed that Sergeant Williams was still staring intently at her. At that moment, cold dread passed through her once more. As if this revelation wasn't scary enough, she could tell that he wasn't done. What he told her next terrified her to her core. Delonda was startled enough just to know that a dangerous criminal had been in her store with a loaded weapon. Her mind couldn't help but go through all the worst-case scenarios of just how much worse things could have been. Now it seemed that there was something even worse about this man. With bated breath, Delonda listened to the news, unable to fully comprehend what she was hearing. Detective Williams calmly explained that not only was this man a dangerous criminal, he was the lead suspect in a serial killer case. The word serial killer rung in Delonda's ears. Her body began to tremble with fear now. So many questions plagued her. Would he know it was her that pointed him out? Did he remember what she looked like? Would he be released? Could he come back to the store? Detective Williams did his best to reassure Delonda that she would be okay after he saw how afraid she became after hearing the news. He explained that this man was the likely perpetrator that had been terrifying the wider Tampa area for some time now. The police had been gathering evidence against him, but for now, it was all circumstantial. Detective Williams explained that the suspect was Howell Emmanuel Donaldson III. He was a graduate from St. John's University in New York. He had been a walk-on student athlete for the men's basketball team. Living in Tampa for over a year now, it seems that Howell had a darker side that no one knew. The evidence had been mounting against him, but for now, it still wasn't enough. Detective Williams went on to explain that they had retrieved and went through the camera footage from the store. Unfortunately, due to a blind spot at the crucial spot, there was no actual footage of Howell throwing the bag into the trash. That meant there was only one way to build a case. Delonda was already more than shaken by the entire ordeal. Detective Williams was doing his best to keep her calm. Her stress levels took a turn for the worse after that. Detective Williams even seemed nervous now as he knew he had a crucial request to ask of her. When he did, Delonda's jaw dropped with fear. Explaining that as she was the only material witness that could tie the suspect to the gun, Delonda had become the police's most vital asset in the case. She knew what was coming he could even ask, but also knew she wanted no part of it. Delonda was going to have to testify against the suspect in court. Detective Williams did his best to set her mind at ease. He explained that without her testimony, the suspect would have to be released, and that meant that he would be out there again. Eventually, realizing she had no choice, Delonda relented. Now there was just one more crucial question remaining that she had to ask. Without it, she was too afraid to help. Delonda clearly felt her safety was at risk if she took part in this case. Detective Williams assured her that he would do everything to protect her. That part didn't worry her so much. She was educated enough to know how the legal system worked. The crucial question to her was, would he be out on bail while the trial went on? Detective Williams explained that if she gave a statement that set out what she had witnessed in the store, that together with her willingness to testify, would be enough to oppose his bail. Delonda felt a little better, but was still extremely nervous about it all. Thinking of the victims, she realized she had a duty to do this for them. She finally agreed. As Detective Williams promised, her statement was enough to have the suspect's bail denied. Now the long wait for the trial begun. Delonda felt afraid and paranoid the entire time, but was determined to do her part and help close this case. This man was a monster and needed to face justice. Before long, the trial commenced. Delonda was given strict instructions by the prosecutors not to talk to any other witnesses in the case or discuss the case with anyone outside of the courtroom. She sat through the initial proceedings. When Howell Emmanuel Donaldson first appeared in court, she never looked at him. The case started and she heard testimony of how he had a bright future but had lost his way. It was finally her time to testify. Despite her fears, Delonda faced him without fear and recounted in detail how she had seen him dumping the bag in the trash. The testimony was enough to tie him to the gun. The gun was already tied to other murders, and between all of this, it was enough to finally convict Howell Emmanuel Donaldson III. He was sentenced to life and Delonda was finally free of the horrible ordeal. Delonda never forgot this incident and even after returning to work often thought about it. After her bravery went public, many people complimented her courage. One woman in particular learned of her ambitions and awarded her a check for $9,000 due Delonda could finish her studies. In the end, her bravery changed her life and she was hailed as a hero. Fast food restaurants and diners stand for more than just simple places to grab something to eat when you are short on time. A lot of us have made great memories at these places. While most usually appreciate the food, that appreciation seldom translates to how we treat the people working there. We forget that sometimes they are the ones standing between us and dangerous situations. In Tennessee, an unsuspecting worker found herself ducking for her life after she had tires screech outside the fast food joint she worked in. She had suspected trouble after a grumpy man walked into the joint to make an order. Before she knew what was happening, glasses shattered everywhere and people were screaming and running for their lives. Melissa Jackson was 18 when she took a job as a cook in one of the most famous burger bars in her town. It wasn't her dream job, but it allowed her to help with the bills back home. She was also in her first year of college and having a job seemed like the best thing to do with all her free time after classes. She had no clue what was about to happen. Life as a fast food worker was a quiet one for Melissa. She'd report to her shift in the morning and work until 1 p.m. Afterward, she'd hurry to class before heading home to spend time with her family. She'd found the perfect balance between work, school, and personal life. But out of nowhere, everything changed. The day the incident occurred had been unlike any other. Melissa had stayed at work for the evening shift in addition to her usual morning one. One of her coworkers had taken an emergency day off, and Melissa had decided to step in and help out. She also needed the extra cash for a few school activities and was happy that the chance had presented itself. She was not ready for what was about to happen. The man seemed calm and collected when he first stepped into the restaurant. He was large and rippling with muscle, with everything that made him stand out: tattoos, a thick beard, and expensive jewelry. Additionally, he also had an expensive car parked outside, which didn't make much sense as people with his kind of money rarely visited Melissa's part of town. Despite the questions racing in her mind, Melissa smiled at the man as he approached the counter. She took his order, a double cheeseburger, chili fries, and 2 sodas, and passed it on to the cook. The man didn't blink once as he spoke to her, keeping an intense gaze on her as the minutes passed. Despite his calm demeanor, something about him was terribly wrong. The air around the man seemed charged with electricity. Many customers were already filling out the restaurant when it was clear that the man was about to stand and wait for his order to be completed. Melissa's fellow cooks quickly whipped up the man's food, giving it to Melissa to hand it over. This she did. But she had no idea that all hell was about to break loose. The man took his bag of food with a curt nod. He fished into his pocket, producing a wallet, from which he presented a card. Melissa swiped it. But the card declined. Melissa tried again, getting the same results. The man snatched the card away with a huff, offering another one. But the second card declined as well. Melissa knew this wouldn't end well. Melissa's manager, who had been surveying the dining area, came by to see what the issue was. But seemingly feeling cornered, the man started rumbling that the staff were acting like he was about to steal their food. He insisted that they thought he was broke, and before they could correct him, he threw his food at Melissa. The poor lady ducked and, before she could come up, heard the man banging the door behind him as he stomped out of the premises. She took a deep breath, imagining all the wrong ways this could have gone. She thought it was over when she heard the tires screech outside. What came next was a loud boom and shattering glass. Customers screamed as they ducked under tables and chairs. Others ran, scrambling for their lives as more ear-numbing booms rented the air. More glass broke, matching the screams that had taken the restaurant. The man's vehicle spun around the parking lot before drifting into traffic and disappearing into the gloomy night. But this was far from over. Melissa's manager ran from one customer to another, ensuring no one was hit. Melissa couldn't move. Her muscles were green with terror, her veins frozen with it. Her wide eyes couldn't even blink. She stared wildly at the holes created behind her, still sizzling. She was still digesting everything when more tire screeches filled the air. Melissa's heart sank. But instead of the man's vehicle appearing, there came a police cruiser with its blue and red lights blinking brightly. An ambulance followed swiftly. The police took Melissa's statement, combining it with the restaurant's camera footage. They promised they would track down the man and bring him to safety. Even more interesting was that no one suffered any injuries in the scary incident. A few weeks later, an officer came to the restaurant to confirm that they'd caught the man. They thanked Melissa for her statement, assuring her that their town would be safer because of her description of the man. So the next time you go for that juicy burger, take a second to say thank you. Some of these restaurants are the pillars of our societies. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. As always, if you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.